10 years ago, if anyone had said to me, "You'll stand on stage under the bright lights in front of a big crowd with nowhere to hide," I would have said, "Me? No way. I'm shy. I don't have anything worth saying that anyone else would want to hear." And growing up as a shy kid, I did what many introverts do. I donned the cloak of extroversion in order to fit into a world that seemed to favour those who always had something to say. Because I believed that in order to be liked, to be smart, to be popular, I had to be loud, smiley, and talkative. So I became driven at an early age to try and fit in and to please others. Raise your hands if you've ever been guilty of being a people pleaser. And as a kid, I was reluctantly in the spotlight on stage as a dancer, performing in shows and competitions. And my mum was a brilliant seamstress. I had the most amazing costumes made from luxurious fabrics, chiffon, lace, and satin in all colours, and they were donned with sequins and feathers. And my mum tailored these costumes to perfection. They fit me like a glove. And yet, I didn't feel like I fit inside them. I was sparkly on the outside, but painfully shy on the inside, wearing those sequins and feathers like a mask to present to the world, the one that I thought the world wanted, getting my glitter on to please others, trying desperately to fit in. And then when I was 8 years old, I had a growth spurt and I became really tall for a girl my age. So I began to develop bad posture, to shrink and make myself small because I wanted to be like my teeny tiny delicate ballerina friends. I got to play the part of the boy in the pantomime. "You're too tall to be a dancer," is what my teacher told me every single lesson. Have you ever been told that you're too this for that? The story sticks, right? Let me ask you a question. What stories do you carry from your childhood? Do those stories serve you? Or do those stories stall you, stop you, and hold you back? Because it's only when we have the courage to loosen the grip on the stories that no longer serve us that we are able to make way for new ones. Came travel. I answered an ad in the paper to be a nurse in Sydney, and it was for a 12-week contract. It was 8 weeks work and 4 weeks travel. And next month will be my 30th anniversary of living in Australia. So it turned out to be a very, very long working holiday. Now, I can remember day one in Australia like it was yesterday. After a 28-hour flight and only a couple of hours sleep, I turned up at 8 o'clock in the morning for the hospital orientation, and I was greeted by the head nurse. She gave me a map, and she told me to go to the top floor of the hospital. When I got out of the lift, the sign said, "Melanoma unit." And I was confused. I'm a midwife. Surely they should be sending me to the mother and baby unit. What am I doing here? I went in and I introduced myself. "Come in. We've been expecting you." Have a wander round and chat to some of the people who we have here with us today. The first person I met was Joe, a 62-year-old cattle farmer. He lived for the land. On his face was a gaping hole where his nose once was. Joe was really excited because this was the day that he was going to be getting his prosthetic nose, his fake nose. And all he wanted to do was get back out onto the land. Next, I met Matt, a 27-year-old surfer. He lived for the water. Matt had been told the devastating news that his melanoma had spread to his lungs and he only had weeks or a month to live. He was happy that day because he was organising a wedding. He was too ill to leave the hospital, but they were arranging for his childhood sweetheart to come into the hospital so that they could have a bedside wedding. That morning I met many men and women, all with stories to share, stories of hope, stories of courage, stories of desperation, stories of fear. And I will never, ever forget what I saw, what I heard, what I felt on that day. And at the time I was confused, wondering, why are they sending me here? Perhaps as a newcomer to Australia, they were wanting to warn me about the harsh realities of the Australian sun. Surely they could have given me a brochure or some stats and figures. But the power of personal storytelling. I will never, ever forget that day. Ever since then, I've been quite happy to be the pearly white colour that I am. I do not go into the sun at all. Stories are so, so powerful. Let me ask you this. What stories from your life could you share that would change the lives of others? No, change. As speakers and as leaders, we are change makers. And if we want to have an impact and we want to empower others to create that change, then we need to take them on an emotional journey. You are the curator of your own story. You get to choose which story to tell and who you will get to share that story with. But the most important story is the one that you tell yourself. And real you. Because when we are teaching and touching, we are creating a connection. And that's what it's all about. Would you agree, Toastmasters? But when we are focusing on tools and techniques, we are aiming for perfection. Connection trumps perfection every single time. But often in Toastmasters, we do have to learn the rules. We've got to learn the techniques in order to break them. I love this quote by Pablo Picasso. Learn the rules like a pro so that you can break them like an artist. Be present. Aim for connection every time rather than perfection. Forget about your words. Forget about your slides. Be fully present in the moment. Be willing to be vulnerable and share your stories because your stories can make a significant impact and change the lives of others.
Change the world together, one story at a time. Thank you.